What's up, people? Welcome to this episode of Shed Show. It's another UFC catch-up. Not a lot going on right now. Really, the biggest thing going on in the world of MMA is boxing. Jake Paul defeated Anderson Silva in a boxing match. Wow. So I'm not gonna really go into detail about that fight or that card. To be honest, I don't really like boxing, but I gotta say, who the frick sanctioned Chris Avila versus Dr. Mike? That was terrible and never should have been sanctioned.
Chris Avila taking on Dr. Mike.
Oh,
And this was
God. Dr. Mike has got a fucking chin, bro. Look how easy this is for
Chris.
Slip the jab, throw the hardest overhand right he wants.
Dr. Mike.
God damn.
This was all one-way traffic. Chris Avila with that right hand.
Oh, Jesus.
Hey, give the doctor credit. He went all 4 rounds with him, but it was Avila who won.
Of course, Dr. Mike deserves credit for his bravery and whatnot. That doesn't make me feel any better because I don't think he should have been in there. He's a doctor, so his brain is important. You know, most fighters are people that otherwise would probably be like violent criminals, you know what I mean? Dr. Mike should not have been put in there with someone like Chris Avila. Chris Avila was in the UFC. You know, he trains with, can't remember his name right now, but, you know, the Diaz brothers boxing coach. And yeah, that should have never been sanctioned. In fact, Chris Avila maybe could have beat Jake Paul. I think Chris Avila probably had a better chance of beating Jake Paul than Anderson Silva. I don't know. I'm just saying that right now off the top of my head, but it seems. And Dr. Mike is just straight up a YouTuber. Like, that didn't make any sense. That should have never happened. So, Dr. Mike, if you're listening to me for some reason, I don't want you to box anymore, bud. Okay? But yeah, Jake Paul defeats Anderson Silva. You know, it's crazy, man. Like, when Jake Paul first entered into the MMA sphere, like when I'm watching my usual MMA media, my little happy place where I just get a break from life, and suddenly Jake Paul was like a topic, you know, a few years ago, man, I was livid at first. It was like someone you really, really don't like showing up to your birthday party, you know, and it just ruins the whole thing. Like, I was like, man, I hope this doesn't last, but of course it has. But I'm not annoyed anymore. I think his efforts to try and unionize fighters is really cool. And the fact that he roped in Anderson Silva to help him do that as part of the bet that he won by winning the fight is really cool. Because, I mean, Jake Paul himself would have a real issue uniting fighters or just getting fighters to listen to him. But Anderson Silva is like, you know, the GOAT. Like, that's a really smart step forward in this goal, and I totally support it. And as a boxer, if you're still not respecting like his wins, then like you're just a hater, you know? See, I'm not a hater. I dislike a lot of stuff and a lot of people, and Jake Paul used to be one of those people. But it's very cool what he's doing, not just as a boxer. Bringing all this attention to the UFC, underpaying fighters is cool. I like that he's, you know, holding Dana White's feet to the fire. There was a minute where I thought he was just stirring the pot for clicks and kind of exploiting a real issue, which is not cool. But I actually believe that his intentions and efforts will at least be genuine, if not effective. So yeah, who would have thought that Jake Paul would be leading the charge on like unionizing the fighters and trying to solve this issue of, you know, if you're not familiar, basically the issue is, put super simply, there's a percentage of profits that go to the fighters, and that percentage is extremely low compared to any other major sport. Apparently they're dedicating like less than 20% to fighters, whereas the usual split is like 50-50. So yeah, it's pretty low. Yeah, I mean Dana White is he's a true capitalist in the worst way. For all the great things that Dana White has done, just at heart, he is not a fair person. He doesn't want to see the fighters make a more appropriate amount of money because he gets off on squeezing as much profit to him and the upper echelon as he can. Like that's part of his motivation, and we see this motivation with like all these moguls, and it's just you to the point where you could very legitimately theorize that, you know, money and power just corrupts people, you know? Or is it just people like that that can work this system and make the money and power? I guess that's the old chicken egg dilemma.
Former MMA fighter taking on Le'Veon Bell, former NFL running back, and it was Uriah Hall with a unanimous decision in his pro boxing debut.
So yeah, Jake Paul really has not had any opponents that I felt were gonna beat him. And I feel the exact same way about Nate Diaz. Like, that's not a fight I want to see because I don't want to see Nate Diaz lose another fight, especially to Jake Paul. He's kind of picking off these UFC fighters after they've already had these long, brutal careers. I mean, Nate Diaz might not be 47 years old like Anderson Silva, but he's 47 years old in like fighting years because he's had so many fights and almost all of them are wars. And as a big fan of him, and even just as a decent human being, I guess, like, I don't want to see him fight anymore. Whatever his business he just started, if it's a fight promotion or whatever, like, just focus on that. But I also, at the same time, understand if the payday would just be too much to pass up. Yeah, I don't want to see Nate Diaz lose Jake Paul, and he would lose Jake Paul, probably more than likely, in my opinion. But yeah, Jake Paul has changed my opinion of him. I think he's changed. I think that martial arts has a lot to do with the character improvements that we've seen from him. I mean, he literally used to, like, just be a douchebag. Like, that was his job. So, I mean, obviously, something like this is much more honorable. It's going to make you a much better person than being a professional douchebag. This fight was, everything about it seemed really above board, you know? I think Jake, you know, got to use PEDs, but Anderson did too, and they did their thing, and it was a good fight that I didn't watch. Based on this this 2-second highlight, looks like it was a good fight. Looks like it was a legitimate win. All right, let's talk a little bit about UFC 280. So main event was pretty dominant. There's a lot of critics on the internet that like to associate Charles Oliveira with the word quitter. This fight definitely didn't help with that reputation, but in my opinion, I mean, he just got demolished. Done in typical Dagestani fashion. If you don't know, Islam Makhachev is Khabib's, like, protege. The word I was trying to think of was protege. Aljamain Sterling beat TJ Dillashaw. Yeah, TJ Dillashaw's shoulder, I guess, was dislocated. So I personally can't stand outcomes like that, you know? Like, at least with the main event, we got just like a really decisive, fair fight without anything weird.
Without, look at Aljamain's hair. Like, what the fuck? What, like, why?
Why would it be shaped perfectly, like to the point that it's like ridiculous, but then right here in the front, it's just like kind of messed up. Like, I think Aljamain was gonna win that fight regardless. And then of course we had Piotr Jan versus Sean O'Malley. A lot of people were really upset about the decision. It was a split decision win for O'Malley. I think that's the exact correct decision. I feel like damage should just kind of be the most important thing. You know what else was cool about this fight? Piotr Jan is infamous for his power, and he landed at least one left overhand that was the punch to sit Sean O'Malley down, if not knock him out, and it didn't. So Sean O'Malley has a chin, which ups his potential. I mean, who in 135 is gonna punch you harder than Piotr Jan? Corey Sandhagen could land a knee, which could be more devastating. Anyway, Beneil Dariush fought this guy, Gamrot. I don't know why. Why don't they show his? They show that this guy's at 9, but Beneil Dariush is definitely ranked. He was definitely fighting down. So I don't know his rank exactly, but it's not here. Beneil Dariush is a weird guy. He wins the fight, and then he said something like he would fight 10 more guys. I don't know.
My crown will come from my Lord and Savior. I don't care if I have to win another 10 fights before I get this belt. I'll do it.
It's not a smart thing to say. It's not a smart stance to take. Caitlin Chookagian was out-blonded by a French woman.
Next, we have Bilal Muhammad versus Sean Brady.
You know, it's interesting. These are two really good fighters. This was like one of the more like technical high IQ fights on this whole card. But it's weird. I saw an interview with Sean Brady today where he said he was like not mentally in it and that he basically beat himself before he even entered the octagon. And I was like, yikes. Like, I felt like that was a bad sign because I felt like that's a denial of the loss. And then I watched the fight again, and I actually totally see what he was talking about. He was just not, it was weird. He just he didn't look right. His mindset was just bad. He had a bad night. He had a bad night. All right, guys, that's all I got for now.
Chin, tough SOB he is, comes right back, lands his own left hand.
Oh, that hurt Sean
really put Sean on wobbly.
Don't ever forget that.